Hi, my name is Julie. I'm from Germany, but in 2019 I moved to the Netherlands to do my bachelor's here at the University of Twente in psychology. And currently I'm finishing up my master's in psychology of conflict, risk and safety. And in my master thesis I use virtual reality to study differences in the behavior of students burgling a virtual house alone with the behavior of students burgling a house in pairs. So there are a lot of crime theories out there that help us understand how, when and by whom crimes are committed, but often these theories overlook social processes that occur when people decide to offend in groups. And actually co-offending, so committing a crime with a partner, is quite common, especially among young perpetrators and in the case of burglary. So if we want to understand the decision-making of criminals, we also need to see how a partner influences a crime. This is also where virtual reality comes in, because in crime research there's always the problem that we ethically and practically can't study crime as it unfolds, but virtual reality offers the tools to now study this in virtual neighborhoods. We wanted to tackle the in-the-moment decision-makings of co-offending. So in our experiment we had two conditions, and in the first condition 2 participants at a time were put into a virtual neighborhood and asked to burgle a house. And when participants were firstly put into the neighborhood, they found themselves in the middle of a street, which was kind of the practice phase, so that people could get used to virtual reality and also practice the motions that they would need during the experiment. So for example, walking around and grabbing items. And when participants were comfortable enough, we instructed them to go to a specific house. So all participants were in the same house. And as soon as they entered the house, the experiment started, and from then on there were really a lot of instructions for the participants, except for burgling the house. So they could freely walk around, and the house consisted of different rooms. So for example, a living room, an office, and a hallway. And within these rooms, different items were placed that participants could steal. And to steal an item, participants needed to pick up the item and put it into a drop zone, which were basically gray cubes that were distributed within the house. And as soon as an item was placed into one of these cubes, the item was considered as stolen. And when participants felt like they're done with burgling the house, they could just leave the house, and that marked the end of the experiment. During the experiment, we measured the time people spent in the house, the number of items they stole, the value of the items they stole, and we also took their physiological heart rate measures. And after the experiment, participants filled in questionnaires assessing their personality dispositions, their level of perceived risk. So in that case, how likely did participants think it is to be caught during the burglary? And also about the present, so how immersed or how realistic did they perceive the environment to be. And after that we repeated the same study with only one participant, so that was the second condition, the solo burglary. And participants burgled again the same house, but this time alone. So this enabled us to directly compare the outcomes and the decision making of students burgling the house in pairs with the behavior of students burgling the house alone. So actually it was quite difficult to formulate clear expectations on what the study would unfold, because as already mentioned, there's not really research out there yet about the in-the-moment decision-makings in co-offending. So there was also no clear comparison yet of solo and duo offenders. And we actually did find significant differences between the two groups. So first of all, duos took more items and gained higher monetary value. We did not find differences in the level of perceived risk. So in both conditions, participants perceived the risk of getting caught as quite low. But it's also important to mention that many participants reported that because it's a virtual reality study, it was more like fun for them, or they experienced it more like a game. So they didn't really consider the risks. And we also didn't manipulate risks. So there was no clear sign like a security camera or guardians or someone who could possibly intervene that signaled the level of risk. And interestingly, we did find differences in the risk-taking behaviors, because the duos took longer for the burglary, and arguably spending more time at the crime scene also increases the chances of being caught. So in the specific case of a burglary, if you stay at the house for longer, this makes it more likely that the homeowner will return. So this is a very interesting finding, that we have these differences in perceived level of risk and the risk-taking behaviors. And lastly, we didn't find any effects of personality, but here it's also important to mention that the personality dispositions of students differ quite a lot from the personality dispositions of actual burglars. So this study was an important proof of concept showcasing differences in the behaviors of students burgling a house alone and students burgling a house in pairs. So this gives reason to replicate similar studies with incarcerated burglars, or to maybe even extend this kind of study to other crimes that are often frequently committed in groups. And ultimately gaining a more thorough understanding of the behaviors, decision-making and perceived risk of offenders helps us design preventive measures that equally deter solo and group offenders. So if you're interested in the study from January 2024 on, you can also find my thesis in the University of Twente thesis portal.